Hello and welcome back to Mastering English Podcast, the place where we take complex English concepts, break them down, and turn them into usable, real-world fluency for you. I'm your host, Alex.
And I'm Sam. It's really good to be back. I am especially enthusiastic about this deep dive because we are setting aside the big topics for a moment. We're getting absolutely microscopic today. We're focusing on the smallest building blocks of communication.
We absolutely are. We're taking a deep dive into the deceptively simple topic of daily routines. Now, you might be thinking, daily routines, I already know how to talk about my morning. Why spend a whole deep dive analyzing this?
Right, and that's a fair question because this isn't just about what time you wake up. It's about structuring your life, what we're calling the architecture of a perfect day. And we're analyzing the crucial scientific intent behind every single action. This structure is like the ultimate vehicle for rapid A1 and A2 language acquisition. It really helps you move into that B1 space quickly and with confidence.
I love that phrase, architecture of a perfect day. It gives purpose to everything. And let's talk about the struggle here. The reason this is so vital. Have you ever been asked by a native English speaker that simple question, what did you do today? Or, what's your typical week like?
And that little question, it seems so basic, but then suddenly it feels like the hardest thing in the world. Your mind just goes completely blank, that frustrating, awkward silence.
Precisely. The idea is you lived them.
Yeah.
You woke up, you ate breakfast, you went to work, but you just freeze. You can't recall the right verb tense, and suddenly you feel overwhelmed. You hit that grammar wall.
And that feeling of chaos, that stress, it's one of the biggest things that stops fluency. Our research suggests that talking about your daily routine is the single most effective shortcut because the ideas are already there. You don't have to search for the words and the ideas at the same time. You just focus on the structure.
It's like removing 50% of the cognitive stress right off the bat. That's huge for a beginner. So today we're going to show you exactly how to build that daily fluency. We're going to look at why checking your phone first thing in the morning is so bad for you, what the sources call doom scrolling. And just to keep you hooked, we will quiz you later on a crucial bit of science, how to avoid falling into a terrible food coma after lunch.
A very, very relevant topic, especially for anyone trying to stay productive in the afternoon.
It is. It links biology and English fluency. But before we jump in, we need to ask you one quick thing. If you are serious about becoming a better, more fluent English speaker, please ask yourself right now, are you subscribed to Mastering English Podcast? If not, just take a second, click that subscribe button, and like this episode right now. It helps us a ton and lets us keep making these for you.
Absolutely. We love having you in our community of deep learners. So shall we get into the structure?
Okay, let's unpack this. Why do so many educational sources, from the BBC to specialized YouTube channels, all stress that talking about your day is the single best starting point for A1, A2 learners? It seems almost too basic to be, the secret weapon.
That's a fantastic question. It really gets to the core of language acquisition psychology. The reason it's so effective is it's purely practical. It comes down to familiarity and utility.
Familiarity is the key, you're saying?
Yes, because you already know it inside and out. Think of it this way. Here's an analogy. Talking about your day is like practicing music with a song you wrote yourself. You know every note, every rhythm. You already have the content. So when you practice speaking, you can put all your focus on the performance, the grammar, the pronunciation, without stressing about what to say.
Right, so I can completely focus on getting the verb to eat right without having to also think about whether I should be talking about, the Peloponnesian War.
Exactly. Let's compare it to something harder. If I ask you to discuss history or politics, you have like 3 layers of difficulty. First, you need specialized vocabulary. Second, you have to form a complex idea. Third, you have to get the grammar right. It's a lot.
That sounds overwhelming, even for me sometimes.
It is. But with your daily routine, you just bypass 2 of those walls entirely. The vocabulary, wake up, shower, go to work. It's the most useful vocabulary in the whole language. You don't have to search for words or ideas. And the structure is the most basic one you need.
So by picking the right topic, we just slash the cognitive burden. We build that muscle memory faster.
Precisely. The goal is automaticity. Think about the real-world scenario from the sources. You meet someone new, they ask, what did you do today? If you've practiced, you can just fire off, I woke up at 7, I walked to work, I drank coffee, and answered 20 emails. That is a full, flowing, complete conversation. And that's the goal.
That confidence boost alone must be worth it. And speaking of practice, that brings us to a technique from English Unleashed. It's more than just repeating. Let's put a spotlight on the term shadowing. What is the difference between simple repeating and the term shadowing?
That's a wonderful distinction to make. Simple repetition is pretty passive. You hear a word, you say the word. But shadowing is way more active and physical. In plain English, shadowing means repeating immediately after the original speaker, trying to copy their rhythm, their intonation, their tone, everything, as perfectly as you can.
So it's not just the sound, it's the musicality and the speed of it.
Yeah.
I'm chasing their linguistic shadow.
You nailed that description. That's exactly it. You are actively engaging your motor pathways, the muscles in your mouth, your tongue. When you shadow, you turn listening from a passive thing into a really active, high-intensity speaking exercise. This physical part is vital for fluency.
I see. It's like turning passive listening into a workout for your mouth.
Ah,
Okay, let's really explore this. Give us 5 distinct examples so we can see how this word works in different contexts.
let's do it. A deep dive into shadowing. 1. Formal example. The pedagogical approach emphasized active shadowing of short dialogues to solidify auditory processing.
Okay, very academic.
2. Casual. When I listen to this podcast, I try to shadow the host's relaxed tone.
I like that one.
3. Funny or weird. My dog thinks I'm crazy because I shadow movie lines in the kitchen, really loud.
I can picture that.
4. Historical. Decades ago, language students used tape recorders for drills, which was kind of a precursor to modern digital shadowing.
Right, the old school version.
And 5. Philosophical. Shadowing is the linguistic act of embodying the speaker's voice, not just repeating the sound.
Embodying the voice. That's interesting, but isn't that a ton of pressure for a beginner? If I can't match the speaker exactly, won't I just get discouraged?
That's a fantastic point. And you're right, if the goal is perfection, it's too much pressure. The key is to shift your goal. The goal isn't perfection, it's engagement. It's speed. You're building fluidity. Even if you miss words, just forcing your mouth and brain to move at that pace helps break the habit of translating.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's try a role play. I'm a language learner. I'm hitting a wall. My sentences are slow and choppy. You recommend shadowing.
Okay. So I see that hesitation, and it's totally normal. What seems to be the biggest problem right now? Is it vocabulary or just the speed?
It's definitely the speed and the connection between words. I understand everything when I read it, but when I try to speak, I stop every few words. My mouth literally can't keep up. It's so frustrating.
I know that feeling. Okay, this means you need to prioritize the shadowing method, like right away. Find a short clip, maybe 2 minutes from a story, and listen to the same 10-second piece 5 or 10 times.
Just listening again and again. That still sounds a little passive.
No, because here's the active part. You have to shadow it out loud.
Yeah.
You hear the speaker say, I woke up early, I had a quick shower, and I answered emails. Then you immediately try to copy that whole phrase, matching their pace, their rhythm. You should feel like you're racing the speaker.
So I should literally try to talk at the same time, like an echo. That feels so awkward.
It is awkward, and
Yeah.
that physical discomfort means it's working. You're trying to capture their musicality. That's why we call it shadowing. If you just do this for 10 minutes a day, your confidence will soar because your mouth muscles start to memorize the flow of English.
Wow, that sounds incredibly efficient, building speed and accuracy at the same time.
Exactly. So let's just quickly cement this with its collocations. We say things like the shadowing method or practicing shadowing, and the main nuance is crucial. It must be done out loud to be effective. Whispering or doing it in your head just doesn't work the same way.
Got it. Okay, let's go back to the core concept. The sources mentioned that practicing this helps you stop translating in your head. How does that actually work?
This is the real bridge to fluency. Translating in your head. Okay, the analogy for this is perfect. It's like trying to drive a car with 2 steering wheels. One for your native language to build the thought, and one for English to translate it. You're constantly stopping, checking, correcting. It's slow and stressful.
That translation layer adds so much friction to just talking.
It does. The goal of using your daily routine is to create a direct connection. When you're translating, you're slow, you're stressed. When you think directly in English, you're more natural and you build stronger habits.
So how does practicing my routine help me think directly faster than, say, practicing a political debate?
Because the actions are so basic, your brain doesn't need to do any heavy lifting. When you ask yourself in English, what time did I wake up? The simple structure reinforces the vocabulary without stress. You start building direct links. The object toothbrush instantly equals the action brush my teeth. No translation needed.
The simplicity is the genius of it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's apply that structure to the first part of the day, what our sources call microscopic morning mastery.
This is where we start building that intentional architecture.
Let's start with the alarm. The sources say 6:30 a.m. is the sweet spot. and we should avoid jumping out of bed. Why is that specific time so important? And wait, before you answer, what if I'm a total night owl? I hate 6:30 a.m. How can that possibly work for me?
That is a wonderful challenge. It shows why we need to understand the science behind it. The 6:30 a.m. time is a generalization, sure, but the principle applies to everyone. It connects to your biology, specifically the cortisol cycle.
Cortisol. That's the stress hormone, right?
That's correct. Your body naturally starts producing more cortisol in the morning to prepare you to wake up. For many people, that peak starts around 6:30 a.m. For a night owl, your peak might be later, maybe 8 a.m., but the principle of waking gently is exactly the same.
So it's the gentle wake-up that's critical, not the exact time.
Exactly. Jumping up immediately. The analogy here is the fight or flight analogy. It signals danger to your brain. That panicked rush floods your system with even more stress hormones. It's a huge, unnecessary spike of cortisol.
And if I start my day in panic mode, I'm basically guaranteeing the rest of my day is going to be chaotic and stressful.
Absolutely. The source material is very clear. That initial stress often infects the entire day. A peaceful, intentional start, just 1 minute of slow breathing before you move, inoculates you against the chaos that's coming later.
Okay, that's the second time we've used that word. Let's put a spotlight on inoculates. It sounds so medical. How does peace inoculate us against stress?
It's a brilliant metaphor because the mechanism is pretty much the same. In plain English, to inoculate means to protect against a bad influence, an emotion, just like a vaccine. You give yourself a small, intentional dose of calm early on to prevent a severe attack of stress later in the day.
I get it. A preventative mental measure. Okay, let's cycle through those 5 examples for this word, inoculate.
Let's do it. 1. Formal. Thorough financial planning can inoculate a company against market fluctuations. 2. Casual. Listening to 5 minutes of music inoculates me against road rage.
I should try that one.
3. Funny. Drinking 2 cups of coffee sometimes inoculates me against my own afternoon sleepiness. 4. Historical. The work of Edward Jenner with the smallpox vaccine is the most famous example of successful inoculation. And 5. Philosophical. A strong sense of self-worth inoculates the spirit against petty criticism.
Those examples make it much clearer.
Yeah.
Let's try a scenario. I have a huge presentation tomorrow, and I'm totally consumed by anxiety right
Well,
now.
okay, that stress is completely understandable. But if you walk in tomorrow already frantic, you won't perform your best. The trick is to take action now to inoculate yourself against the panic.
But how do I build a defense against something that hasn't happened yet? The worry is here now.
You manage what you can control. Stop focusing on the presentation for a minute. Go for a short walk. Do some slow breathing. Write down what you're afraid of. By taking these calming steps now, you're building a psychological defense. You are inoculating your mind against the heat of the actual moment tomorrow.
So using preparation as a mental vaccine, I can see that.
Exactly. Now, for the collocations, we almost always say inoculate against something. Or we talk about mental inoculation. The nuance is that it always suggests prevention before the problem starts.
Got it. Okay, moving to the first physical action. Making the bed. It seems so trivial. Why do experts call making the bed a momentum habit?
It's pure behavioral psychology, the psychology of the first win. It sounds simple because it is simple, but that's the genius of it. It's the very first success of the day. If you make your bed, you immediately trigger a positive feedback loop.
Okay, let's dissect that. A positive feedback loop. What is that exactly?
The best analogy is a snowball rolling down a hill. A positive feedback loop is a system where the result of an action encourages more of that same action. The snowball picks up snow, gets bigger, which helps it pick up even more snow.
So making the bed is the initial push for the snowball.
Precisely. It provides a visible, tangible win and a sense of control. You start your day saying, I succeeded at task 1, and your brain gets a little reward. That positive momentum carries into everything else.
I can see how that would change the whole emotional feel of the morning. That's great.
It's all about that intentionality.
After the first win, the routine stresses light and hydration. The sources specify opening the curtains because of blue spectrum light. What's the science there?
We're talking about the brain's master clock and our circadian rhythm. We have a natural internal 24-hour clock. When blue light from the sun hits your eye, it sends a powerful signal to your brain to stop producing melatonin.
That's the hormone that makes you sleepy. So sunlight is the big off switch for sleep mode.
It's the most powerful natural cue there is. If you stay in a dim room, your brain keeps making melatonin and you feel groggy and sluggish. It's why your phone is terrible at night, but sunlight is mandatory in the morning.
And what about the recommendation for warm water instead of cold?
The key here is a gentle start. Cold water can be a bit of a shock to the system. Warm water is more relaxing and gentler on your digestive system, which is still waking up. Plus, after 8 hours of sleep, you're dehydrated, so you need that water for your brain to function properly.
Okay, after the physical start, the routine calls for mental calibration, journaling, or silent time. The sources call this a form of metacognition. That sounds like a big, intimidating word. Why should a B1 learner care about this?
It does sound formal, you're right, but the concept is so practical, especially for learning. In plain English, metacognition just means thinking about your thinking. It's reviewing your actions, your feelings, your learning process, but after the fact, without the heat of the moment.
So it's like stepping outside myself to analyze my own performance, a self-review meeting.
Exactly. Let's run through 5 examples to make it concrete. 1. Formal. Journaling facilitates metacognition by externalizing the cognitive process. 2. Casual. When I review my day, what went well and what went wrong, that's my little bit of metacognition.
I do that sometimes.
3. Funny. I often engage in metacognition after eating too much ice cream, like, what were the thought processes that led to that decision? 4. Historical. Ancient philosophies that encouraged self-reflection were essentially early forms of structured metacognition. And 5. Philosophical. True learning requires not just input, but the metacognition of how that knowledge is processed.
That last one really connects to our listeners. It means we stop blindly following advice and start analyzing how we learn best. Let's do a role play. I'm completely frustrated because I used the wrong preposition 3 times today.
I can see you're upset. Tell me what happened, but don't try to fix it right now.
I was trying to say I was going to be on the meeting, but I kept saying in the meeting, I know the rule, but when I speak, my brain just grabs the wrong word and I feel so stupid.
Okay, breathe. That's a classic sign of the heat of the moment overriding the rules you've learned. Tonight, when you're journaling, that's when you practice metacognition. Don't focus on the embarrassment. Just revisit the conversation. Write down what you wanted to say and what you actually said.
And by doing that, I pull the data out of the emotional context.
Precisely. You analyze your performance objectively without the stress. That is the essence of metacognition. It helps you understand not just what the mistake was, but why your brain chose that path under pressure.
I see. Turning mistakes into data points, not personal failures.
Exactly. Now, for collocations, we talk about practicing metacognition or the metacognitive process. The nuance for learners is that it helps you track how you learn. You might realize you learned a word best by shattering it, not just reading it.
That wraps up a very intentional morning. Now we move into the workday and reducing cognitive load.
Right. The intentional start gives way to intentional efficiency.
The first mandatory action is checking the planner. I thought the brain was supposed to be great at memory. Why do we need to write everything down?
You've hit on a critical bottleneck. This brings us to a deep dive into cognitive load reduction.
Okay, define cognitive load reduction for me in plain English. That sounds very technical.
It is, but the analogy makes it simple. Think of your mind like a laptop. Your working memory is your mental RAM, the space for immediate tasks. The more things you try to remember, call the doctor, buy milk, practice that idiom, the more mental RAM you use up. That is your cognitive load.
Ah, so high cognitive load means all my brain's power is tied up remembering little things, leaving less power for the actual hard work.
You've got it. When your cognitive load is high, your performance drops. By checking your planner, you're practicing externalization of memory. You're taking that list out of your working memory and putting it on paper. This instantly frees up that precious mental RAM.
So the energy I save is now available for deep focus on my English practice.
Absolutely. The brain is great at thinking, but it's terrible at remembering things it shouldn't have to. Let's make cognitive load our next vocabulary deep dive.
Spotlight on cognitive load. Let's see those 5 examples.
Ready? 1. Formal. Research shows that reducing extraneous cognitive load in instructional design improves student retention. 2. Casual. I cannot talk on the phone and cook at the same time. My cognitive load goes through the roof.
You feel that?
3. Funny. Trying to build IKEA furniture while listening to a true crime podcast resulted in severe cognitive load, which explains why the shelf is crooked. 4. Historical. The invention of writing helped reduce society's collective cognitive load by externalizing information. And 5. Philosophical. A minimalist lifestyle is an attempt to reduce external cognitive load, freeing the mind for deeper questions.
That's extremely thorough. Let's apply that directly to language learning.
Okay, imagine you're trying to write a critical email in English.
When my cognitive load is high, I'm thinking about the phrasing, the tone, the grammar, the spelling, and the 5 other meetings I have to prep for, it's overwhelming.
Exactly. Your mental RAM is full. But if you have already checked your planner and written those other tasks down, your cognitive load drops. You can now use that freed up energy to focus purely on the nuances of the email.
The quality of the output improves because the mental input is focused.
Absolutely. And for the terminology, we talk about reducing cognitive load or dealing with high cognitive load. The nuance is that it's about the difficulty of tasks, not just the number.
Moving back to the planner,
Mm-hmm.
the sources say tackle the important, dreaded tasks first. Why?
It's psychological momentum again. We call this eating the frog.
Uh,
If you knock out that biggest, scariest task in the morning, you get a huge boost of momentum and dopamine. You feel successful.
and if I procrastinate on easy emails?
That's the danger. You hit noon still facing that big project, your mental battery is already low, and the project feels even more overwhelming. You've been busy, but you haven't been productive.
This all sounds like a battle against distraction, which brings us to the great saboteur.
The phone. The source material calls it the great saboteur of focus. The question is, how do we separate the tool from the killer of focus? What does it mean to create friction?
Spotlight on creating friction. How does that work mentally?
Friction here is a deliberate barrier to distraction. Distraction is often a subconscious reflex. When you get stuck, your hand just reaches for the phone. Creating friction is making that reflex harder to complete.
So I should make it difficult to open Instagram, even if I need my phone for a timer.
Precisely. You add extra weight or friction to the distracting action. Put the phone across the room. Put it on silent. You force your brain to make an intentional choice to be distracted instead of falling into a habit.
That's a subtle but powerful distinction. Intentionality over reflex.
And that idea extends to our physical space. The principle is mental clutter follows visual clutter. A clean desk simplifies the task.
Okay, this intentional focus requires energy, which leads to fuel. But the sources warn about what happens after a heavy lunch. Let's talk about the dreaded food coma.
Ah, the classic midday crash. The sources stress eating small, balanced meals. The traditional big midday meal is a productivity killer.
Why is a big meal so disruptive?
It's all about your blood sugar and insulin. A large meal, especially one high in simple carbs like pasta or sugary desserts, causes a massive insulin spike. Your body works hard to clear that sugar, and when insulin overcorrects, your blood sugar crashes. That sharp drop is the food coma.
Okay, spotlight on food coma. What's the difference between just being sleepy and falling into a food coma?
In plain English, a food coma is that extreme, almost irresistible tiredness that comes specifically after a large, heavy meal. It's the physical crash after the big insulin spike. It goes way beyond normal sleepiness.
Let's hit those 5 examples for food coma.
Absolutely. 1. Formal. The medical community recognizes the postprandial dip, colloquially known as a food coma, which severely impacts afternoon cognitive function. 2. Casual. That huge lunch put me straight into a terrible food coma.
Happens all the time.
3. Funny. I warned him about the mashed potatoes, but he insisted. Now he's so deep in a food coma, he's snoring at his desk. 4. Historical. Elaborate historical feasts often led to guests suffering a prolonged food coma. And 5. Philosophical. The food coma is the body's temporary rebellion against the tyranny of high-level brain work.
That's great. I'm thinking about the scenario from the source material with the roommates, Jenny and Ella. Jenny is always exhausted.
Right. And Ella, the yoga teacher, is clearly trying to help Jenny avoid the daily food coma cycle.
Ella says to her, "You've been off all day, you don't take care of yourself." Jenny just eats peanut butter toast for every meal.
And that, on white bread with sugary jam, is a glucose spike waiting to happen. If Jenny switched to the lighter meals suggested, like yogurt with fruit, she would stabilize her glucose levels. She would avoid that predictable afternoon crash into a food coma.
Sustain energy instead of the rush and crash.
Precisely. And for collocations, we say avoid a food coma or being deep in a food coma. The nuance is that it's always used casually, often humorously.
Okay, speaking of structured energy, the Pomodoro technique, 25 minutes of work, 5-minute break, isn't arbitrary, is it? What are the ultradian rhythms mentioned?
This takes us into a deep neuroscientific principle, ultradian rhythms. This is the key to managing sustained effort.
Spotlight on ultradian rhythms. Define that for us simply.
Ultradian rhythms are biological cycles that happen throughout the day. The most critical one for work is the 90-minute cycle. Our sources say high-level focus can only be sustained for about 90 to 120 minutes straight. Your brain naturally operates in these cycles of peak efficiency followed by a mandatory recovery period.
So we're not fighting the brain by forcing it to work for 8 hours straight. We're working with its natural cycles.
Absolutely. The analogy is a high-performance sports car engine. You can run it at maximum for a while, but if you don't take a pit stop, it will overheat. The 25-minute sprint is maximizing that efficiency, and the 5-minute break is your pit stop.
That's a great way to put it. So this prevents true fatigue or burnout.
Exactly. You're constantly replenishing your mental RAM. Imagine a learner practicing shadowing for 90 minutes straight. By the end, they're exhausted. But if they take a 5-minute walk after 25 minutes, they come back fresh.
Makes perfect sense. And this connects back to physical maintenance. The sources recommend a walk or gentle yoga during those breaks to regulate stress hormones.
Yes, we circle back to cortisol. When you're sitting and focused, cortisol levels build up. Low impact, rhythmic movement like walking is a direct physical way to signal to your brain that the danger is over. You're actively calming the system.
This intentionality must carry right into the evening, the final phase, evening wind down and knowledge consolidation.
Yes, this is where the learning truly sticks, or where it gets lost.
The sources are extremely firm on the screen barrier rule. Phone away 30 minutes before sleep. Why is this mandatory?
Because the science is so non-negotiable. Blue light from screens suppresses melatonin. At night, you need melatonin to regulate your sleep cycle. If you suppress it, you delay sleep, and the quality of your sleep suffers dramatically.
And poor sleep quality is the enemy of learning, I assume.
It's the single biggest threat. Sleep is when memory consolidation happens. During deep sleep, your brain processes and files all the new vocabulary you learned. If you interrupt that process with blue light, you are actively undermining your own learning.
This brings us to a related term, sleep hygiene. Is that just about temperature and light, or is it a whole system?
It is absolutely a total system. Sleep hygiene, in plain English, is the entire set of habits and practices that help you sleep well on a regular basis. It's the intentional effort you make all day to ensure quality sleep.
I have to admit, I check stressful work emails right before I close my eyes.
Yeah.
I must have terrible sleep hygiene.
That is the perfect example of poor sleep hygiene. You're introducing high stress and blue light at the absolute worst moment. Let's look at the 5 examples. 1. Formal. Clinicians often recommend improving poor sleep hygiene through the elimination of blue light exposure. 2. Casual. Checking work emails before bed is terrible sleep hygiene. 3. Funny. I once tried drinking a giant espresso before bed. I can confirm that is spectacularly terrible sleep hygiene. 4. Historical. Traditional evening practices like lowering the light were early forms of maximizing sleep hygiene. And 5. Philosophical. Sleep hygiene is the daily negotiation between the mind's desire to stay awake and the body's need for rest.
That's incredibly comprehensive.
Yeah.
Let's do a role play based on the early bird versus night owl idea. I'll be the night owl defending my poor sleep hygiene.
I know you identify as a night owl, but going to bed at 1:30 a.m. after staring at your phone? That isn't a lifestyle choice. That is a textbook example of poor sleep hygiene.
But I feel most creative late at night. My brain finally turns on after midnight when the world is quiet.
You might feel creative, but you are systematically depriving your brain of the restorative deep sleep it needs for memory consolidation. That blue light means you aren't even properly producing melatonin. When you wake up, you are already behind.
So, if I want to retain the new English words I learned, prioritizing good sleep hygiene is more important than that extra hour of work.
It is absolutely non-negotiable. Without quality sleep, the brain cannot file away new knowledge.
Okay. That brings us to what we should be doing instead of scrolling. Active learning. Why is multisensory reinforcement hearing, seeing, saying, writing so crucial for memory?
It's the highest level of memory lock-in you can get. When you simply read a word, you engage one sense. When you hear it, too. But when you hear, see, say, and then write the word,
The physical act of writing must give it a unique boost.
it engages the motor cortex directly. When you physically write a new word, you reinforce all the memory pathways simultaneously. You're turning short-term memory into long-term learning.
That takes us into our final scenario. Let's look at the dialogue between Molly and Sarah when Molly is having a rough day. It's full of natural B1 expressions. Let's start with Molly's admission. I'm running on empty.
That is an indispensable idiom. Let's put a spotlight on running on empty.
What does that mean in plain English?
It means you have absolutely no energy left. You are severely fatigued, exhausted, just like a car with no fuel. You're operating purely on fumes.
It's a very descriptive analogy. Let's run through the 5 examples.
Let's do it. 1. Formal. After working 3 consecutive 12-hour shifts, the nurse admitted she was running on empty. 2. Casual. I stayed up all night studying. I feel like I'm completely running on empty today. 3. Funny. I'm running on empty after that workout, and I think I might hallucinate a giant slice of pizza. 4. Historical. During the final days of the marathon, the athletes were clearly running on empty. And 5. Philosophical. To constantly push oneself to the point of running on empty undermines the spirit's long-term capacity for joy.
That's powerful. Let's do a role play using this and the other B1 expressions from that dialogue.
Okay. I'll be Sarah, the supportive friend. You be Molly, who's had a terrible day.
I look awful, don't I? I almost set the kitchen on fire this morning trying to make eggs. Then I got soaked in the rain, and I still have 5 reports to write. I am totally, absolutely running on empty.
Oh, that sounds like a truly rough day. And you've been off all day. I noticed you were quiet at dinner.
I felt off. And I didn't want to say anything because I was afraid I'd just make you tired with all my silly problems.
And my natural response would be, don't worry, your problems are not silly. You are clearly running on empty. Why don't you sit down and engage in some metacognition while I do the dishes?
That is a perfect use of 3 new concepts in one natural exchange.
It shows how quickly this language integrates. And for collocations, we say, feel like I'm running on empty, or being emotionally running on empty. The nuance is it suggests total depletion. It's way stronger than just tired.
That conversation also gave us, you've been off all day, which is a fantastic B1 expression.
Exactly. It's subtle and friendly. And we also got the great past tense mishap example. Almost set the kitchen on fire.
Perfect. Okay, let's move to resource selection. BBC, ESL Pod, VOA, YouTube. How should a B1 learner choose?
You should not try to use everything at once. That would create a huge cognitive load. We need to break down their strengths.
Let's start with the big ones. BBC British Council.
Their strength is reliability and structure. They provide full transcripts, interactive exercises. It's all there. They're great for solid, structured input.
And how about ESL Pod?
ESL Pod's unique strength is detailed explanations of conversational idioms and their slow speed methodology. You want to understand American slang and daily interactions, they're the best.
And VOA Learning English.
VOA is great for exposure to American English and current affairs, but delivered at a slower pace. It's a perfect bridge for A2 learners who want to understand the news without getting overwhelmed.
So we have structure, idioms, and news. What about the YouTube active practice channels?
They focus aggressively on the output, the speaking. Their strength is the direct focus on the shadowing method. They mandate active participation, which is essential.
So combine structured input with active output.
That's the ideal approach for accelerated fluency.
This brings us back to our big personality debate. The early bird versus the night owl. What's the difference between an early riser and an early bird?
An early riser just wakes up early. An early bird is the idiom for someone who wakes up early and is energetic and productive in the morning. The opposite is a night owl, who is active late at night and struggles in the morning.
Right. I remember the dialogue where the roommates debated this. Let's run through 5 examples for both.
Okay. 1. Formal. The study compared the productivity of early birds versus night owls. 2. Casual. I wish I were an early bird, but I'm a total night owl. 3. Funny. My early bird friend is annoying when he texts me at 5 a.m. while I, the night owl, am just getting to bed. 4. Historical. Standardized work hours historically favor the early bird profile. And 5. Philosophical. The night owl finds creativity when the rest of the world is asleep.
That beautifully captures the tension. Let's do a quick role play debating this. I'll be the night owl.
I still don't understand how you function. The common wisdom is that the early bird catches the worm.
But I'd argue I'm maximizing my focus by naturally creating friction against distraction. The world is quiet at 1 a.m. My deepest work is done when you, the early bird, are sound asleep.
I'll concede the creativity point, but you are systematically destroying your sleep hygiene. You sacrifice restorative sleep, which means you spend your mornings running on empty. That is not efficient.
Okay, you went on the health argument. But I still like the quiet.
We need systems that work for both types, and this architecture can.
Let's move to our common mistake segment. This is where we focus on using the words we have correctly.
Right. Elevating A2 language to confident B1 communication.
Mistake 1, forgetting politeness. In a cafe, can I say, give me coffee?
No, that is a common translation mistake, but it sounds demanding and rude in English. The sources are clear that politeness makes a huge difference.
So should I say?
Soften it. Can I have a latte, please? Or I'll take a croissant, thank you. Those extra words add huge social value.
Okay. Mistake 2, confusing tenses. When describing my typical routine, can I say, today I am working?
No, that's a subtle but common mistake. For a routine or habit, you must use the simple present tense. I wake up, I eat breakfast, I go to work.
And I am working is for right
Or
now.
something temporary, yes. Mastering this is essential for B1 fluency.
And mistake 3, overusing very or really. If I'm exhausted, can I just say I'm very, very tired all the time?
You can, but it's repetitive and signals a lack of vocabulary. To sound natural, you need stronger alternatives from our sources. Instead of very tired, say, I'm running on empty, or I'm exhausted, or I'm drained.
Using that specific vocabulary makes the communication more vivid.
Exactly. You are showing mastery of nuance.
We have covered so much ground today. Before we sign off, let's see what's stuck.
It's time for the pop quiz. 1. What is the hormone that tells your body it's time to sleep?
That is melatonin.
Correct. 2. What is the term for adding a barrier to stop a distraction reflex?
That is creating friction.
Excellent. 3. If you hate waking up early but feel energetic at 10 p.m., are you an early bird or a night owl?
Definitely a night owl who probably needs to improve their sleep hygiene.
You connected 2 concepts. Perfect. And finally, 4. What is the term for reviewing your thoughts without the heat of the moment?
That is metacognition, thinking about your thinking.
Perfect score. You've mastered this deep dive.
Let's quickly summarize the top takeaways for our listeners.
Top 3 concepts. 1. The daily routine as a low-stress fluency builder. 2. Cognitive load reduction. Write things down to free up your mental RAM. And 3. The science of the screen barrier and sleep hygiene for memory consolidation.
And our top 5 words learned today: shadowing, cognitive load, food coma, inoculates, and sleep hygiene. Now for our micro challenge. Today, listener, I want you to use one new piece of vocabulary like sleep hygiene or food coma in a conversation or a note. Use it in the real world.
That's a powerful challenge. We talked a lot about how making your bed is the first success of the day. So here is my final provocative thought for you.
Let's hear it.
If one tiny intentional habit can shift your daily trajectory that much,
All right.
what other single intentional habit unrelated to your job or school could you add today to redefine the architecture of your tomorrow?
A perfect thought to end on. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like and subscribe to Mastering English Podcast.
Keep practicing, keep shadowing, and keep building that confidence.
I'm Alex. See you next time.
And I'm Sam. Bye.